Rouse's is proud of the creativity and the unparalleled entertainment in New Orleans, and honored to highlight it with their sponsorship of Steppin Out on WYES.
Steppin Out is made possible in part by Susie and Pierre G. Villery.
With a lifetime of passion for public television, we're pleased to help underwrite Steppin Out.
Please join us in supporting WYES TV.
I'm Peggy Scott Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, with updates from the local restaurant, arts, and entertainment scenes. Joining me, Poppy Tucker, host of Louisiana Eats on WWNO Radio. You look radiant, Poppy. Radiant. Don Marshall, Executive Director of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival and Foundation, here to receive WYES's Celeste Seymour Judel's Arts Award for his many contributions to the visual arts and the performing arts community. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay. Also with us, Alan Smason, editor of the Crescent City Jewish News and Theater Criticism.com. Howdy, Alan.
Hey.
Hello. Poppy, news from that beloved restaurant, Compère Le Pain.
Well, can you believe it's 7 years old?
Wow.
And so they're celebrating their 7th anniversary with big news. The Raw Bar is back. That's always been one of the best raw bars in the city. And of course you can get ceviche, crab fingers, of course delicious. Oh Lord, we've got some oysters that have a little uni and some caviar. And they have whole chilled platters that you can order.
Oh, wow.
There's a new summer menu with chilled corn soup, pan-roasted red snapper, and even a peach panna cotta. Doesn't that sound delicious?
It sure does.
And while we're talking, and of course that Nina Compton, you know, her food is so beautiful, and that's her baby, James Beard Award winner. So a big anniversary at Bacchanal is happening. 7 years for Compère Le Pain, 20 years for Bacchanal. Look at that cobia. That's cobia, I know. But anyway, Bacchanal is also big anniversary, 20 years. And of course, at Bacchanal, there is live music every night. But every other Tuesday, it started 2 weeks ago, and it's happening every other Tuesday. Primal Nights is their big fundraising event. This has been going on since 2017. They raise money for good causes. They've raised over $100,000. And what goes on at Primal Nights is that they bring in great chefs for pop-ups. So next Tuesday is their chef, Lydia Solano, coming up. Following Lydia will be Fredo Noguero, of course, of Val's and the Cure Group, Alon Shaya from Saba, David Slater from Emeralds, and you'll want to mark your calendar, November 1st, it's going to be Mason Herford from The Turkey and the Wolf and Molly's Rise and Shine. That's going to be a good time. Every other Tuesday.
Yeah, that place. Oh my goodness! Talk about a staple in my world.
It is. It's such a New Orleans institution now after 20 years.
I love anniversaries. That you're actually been around long enough that you can have one. It's great. Thank you so much, Poppy. Longtime New Orleans art activist Celeste Seymour Judel was a very dear friend of WYES. Her support of the performing and visual arts in New Orleans included the New Orleans Opera. She was also a patron to many local artists. Her husband, Harold, was a New Orleans attorney and philanthropist. And tonight, we want to acknowledge the, of course, person who really deserves it this year, a dedication to both, look at that, I love that photograph, dedication to both the performing and, of course, visual arts. This person couldn't be more appropriate to honor in Celeste's memory. And, of course, we wanted to show you, before we hand it to him, it was created by Mark Rosenbaum, owner of Rose Tree Gallery. Don Marshall, congratulations.
Well, thank you, Peggy.
We could spend the entire half hour talking about this is your life, Don, okay?
Right.
But I guess we certainly have to, look how beautiful that is, yes. But we have to start off with your family, and specifically your mama.
Right, my mama, right. No.
She was such an amazing, she was a force of nature, and of course, such an arts patron herself, but she worked full-time. You all had later Dixie Art Supply and Downtown Gallery, and you got to meet a lot of amazing artists there, didn't you?
Well, that was the amazing thing of just growing up in that environment of working in an art supply store, dealing with artists, and then also at the galleries. I mean, being an 8-year-old and going to art openings, wine openings, and getting to know the artist and everything. And sort of, that really introduced me to the richness of the New Orleans arts community.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal.
And people like George Dureau, as you know, and John McCready, and the Calandrias, and you know, the list goes on and on. But yeah, she was really something. And then also, there's an amazing photo of you and your brother Keith, who got to meet Clementine Hunter.
Right, Clementine was in the gallery. So we would go up, you know, maybe every third month or something to go visit Clementine and actually, you know, bring art supplies. One time we brought a dog, one time we brought a refrigerator, you know, the whole thing. So we got to really know her, and just what an amazing, amazing talent. But people don't realize the richness of the New Orleans visual arts community back, you know, in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. And the 60s was very explosive. You had the Orleans Gallery, the Downtown Gallery, and just this amazing numbers of really professional, talented visual artists. You know, you had Newcomb School of Art with the Woodwards, then you had the Arts and Crafts Association and McCready School of Art. And so we were really one of the major art centers, visual arts centers, back in the 60s.
And as we just mentioned, the business, Dixie Art Supply, and I know you were different locations, but then ultimately, you ended up settling in the more recent past on Julia Street,
right,
buying a warehouse, which then later is sold to the Louisiana Children's Museum.
Right. That was an interesting experience of just moving into the, you know, the warehouse district was something new, and being able to provide space for the Children's Museum to start. You know, which they're, you know, I was involved with the Children's Museum early on with my kids, and just sort of helping them, and then all of a sudden we had space that they could launch this amazing organization. So that was a fun experience.
And then, of course, moving over to, you were the founding director of the Contemporary Art Center just a few blocks away,
right,
over there on Camp Street, and it was formerly, what was it, a Katz and Bestoff warehouse?
K&B warehouse, and it also had one of the soda fountains in there. I mean, it was a, you know, multi-purpose, and it was gigantic. I mean, it still is, certainly, but I mean, 4 floors of, I think, you know, tens of thousands of square footage that Sidney Bestoff graciously lent to the Contemporary Arts Center. And that was a dynamic time, the late 70s, in the arts in America, but also in New Orleans. And so with all that space, we were able to, any artist who wanted to do something, whether it was theater or dance or visual arts, it was like, sure, here's some space, go do it and everything. I mean, at one time we had 5 resident theater companies at the Contemporary Arts Center, and just this amazing, you know, exhibition space. One of the first shows we did was a retrospective of George Dureau, which transformed the space beautifully, and then it really became sort of the center of the arts in New Orleans.
And I'm so glad you mentioned theater, because yes, it wasn't just about the visual arts. You had a theater space. And Don, I've just got to tell you, your can-do attitude, you know, Judy and Mickey,
right,
let's put on a show. We may not have much money, but we're going to try to make this work. David Cuthbert, of course,
yes,
a dear friend, a long time, you know, arts journalist and theater journalist, and good guy. But he talked about producing plays at the CAC under your management, and you said, well, you know, let's try to do an art exhibit at the same time. And so they did Equus, and he went out and got Arthur Kern, known for his magnificent horse sculptures.
Gorgeous.
Putting
gorgeous.
that together.
Yeah. Well, that was
them
another
together.
nice thing about the Contemporary Art Center is with all the arts, you had artists interacting. You know, theater artists working with visual artists, working with dance artists and stuff. And it was, again, a very explosive time in this community. And, you know, it really helped grow the richness that we have today.
Absolutely. Well, when we come back, we're going over to Alan, but when we come back, we'll talk about Le Petit Theater, too, and the wonderful years you had there. Alan.
Well, Peggy, it's that time everybody's been waiting for. It's time for to be in the room where it happens. And that's, of course, Hamilton, the Lin-Miranda, spectacle. And it's come to New Orleans once again, that time of year.
And we've got
I'm past patiently waiting, I'm passionately smashing every expectation, every action's an act of creation. I'm laughing in the face of casualties and sorrow. For the first time I'm thinking past tomorrow. And I am not gonna away my shot. I am not gonna away my shot. Hey, yo, I'm just from the country, I'm not strappy and hungry, and I'm not gonna away my shot. We're gonna rise up, it's time to take a shot. We're gonna rise up, it's time to take a shot. We're gonna rise up, rise up. It's time to take a shot. Rise up, rise up, take a shot. Rise up, it's time to take a shot. Rise up, take a shot.
American history, Peggy, turned on its head in Hamilton. Of course, anybody who's seen it before will want to go back, and those of you who have not seen it, it's a whole new retelling of the story of Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, and our founding fathers.
And Alan, I know you had to be elsewhere, but I was there last night, and this will not disappoint, of course. And I'm amazed it's going to be up for 2 weeks past July 4th, which gives you some idea of the confidence I'm glad the Sanger has in New Orleans audiences. But once again, spectacularly done. You and I always want to let anybody know who might be going for the first time that it would really be helpful to listen to the soundtrack, or if you've got Disney Plus, lucky you, and you could watch it, because it moves so fast, and the patter of it all, and the cadence, that it might be hard to understand for the first time, right?
And there are a lot of songs that's not all rap. Songs like Burn that are traditional Broadway type of
different kinds
ballads.
of music.
You really need to get into it. And of course, humor. The king, of course, is very funny. So those of you who have not gotten a chance to see it yet, I promise you, you will love Hamilton. And those of you who have seen it and maybe didn't care for it as much, let me put it this way: go back, try it again. Try it on for size again. The reason I wasn't at Hamilton, though, was I was at Bandstand, which was the regional premiere of the 2017 Tony-nominated musical that is now over at Summer Lyric Theater. And I have to tell you, directed and choreographed by Diane Lala, this production has a great many moving parts. It's a story about returning veterans from World War II. Also a love story. The two leads there, Emily Fink and Alex Pracken, who plays Donnie Nowitzki, and Julia Trojan, the band leader and a vocalist, respectively. And this whole band that they form is composed of returning vets from World War II. But the individual members of the band are really just as important as the two leads. They describe veterans with a great many of psychological difficulties, problems like alcoholism and addiction, and difficulties in coping with the return to civilian life. And there's Liz Argus. She plays Julia's mother. She has one big number in the second act, but the ensemble nature of this particular play, this musical, is enormous. There's some wonderful numbers in here. The biggest numbers are Love Will Come Home, Find Me Again, and Welcome Home. They're at the heart of Bandstand with music evocative, but not really specific to the era. The music is by Richard Oberacker, and it's also Richard who contributed to the book and lyrics with Robert Taylor. The music's well-directed and conducted by interim artistic director C. Leonard Raybon, superb sets by Rick Paul, and great costumes by Casey Thomasy, fabulous lighting also by Daniel Zimmer. This show ends on Sunday, but don't miss it. Bandstand is really an important show and one of the best ones that you will see in the Summer Lyric offerings this summer. By the way, also, we're going to talk about Schoolgirls coming up, but at the Schoolgirls presentation last week, we got to see the initial presentation of the Carol Sutton Memorial Grants. This was done with Brian Sands and Gwendolyn Foxworth there, giving a $1,000 check to A.J. Allegra of the NOLA Project to assist with that production.
Wow, thank you. And on to Poppy.
Well, do you want to write a cookbook? Is that what you've always wanted to do? Well, this is going to be a great weekend to learn how. because the Jefferson Parish Library is putting on their Food Writers Symposium. It's free. It's going to take place at the River Ridge Library on Jefferson Highway. Liz Williams will be there on writing a cookbook and the legal issues to think of. Cynthia Nobles will be there from LSU talking about what publishers and editors are looking for, and I'll be there talking about writing recipes. So don't miss that Saturday. It's free. And then another thing Saturday afternoon, if you don't want to write a cookbook, if you love ghost stories, head to Antoine's on Saturday afternoon to the Hermes Bar, where Mary Walsh is going to be talking about and selling copies of her book, Fine Spirits Served Here. It's a ghost story that takes place entirely at Antoine's. It's perfect summer reading. Lots and lots of fun. And then on Sunday, it's time again for Poppy's Pop-Up Drag Brunch. And you know, this is the last Sunday of every month. So it's this Sunday, and then it's Sunday the 31st. But I wanted to give everybody the big heads up that my friends Bo Cialino and Matt Armato, the social medium phenoms of the blog Probably This, people probably know from Instagram, they will be there with their first book, their new book, Housewarming, and they'll be giving us some great DIY ideas while the drag queens help us all celebrate. That's the last Sunday in August.
Thank you so much. And now back over to Don. And Don, we should mention that after you left the CAC, you moved over to Le Petit. 30 productions under your care. But something happened one night.
One night in the children's corner, where at one time you were the resident princess, I believe.
Thank you for remembering.
That you and I were at another type of meeting, community meeting, organizing, of course, and we started discussing our projects. And you were talking about the New Orleans Literary Festival that you and Errol and others in the community were starting. And I was talking about the upcoming production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof at Le Petit and how we were starting a Tennessee Williams Festival. So, you know, it was one of those meetings that was meant to be. And again, it sort of demonstrates the wonderfulness of this rich, rich cultural community of people really, cultural people, creative people get along and they work together. We all know we have to work together to make things happen. And that was just a wonderful happening, and from there it grew and grew and grew.
It sure did, and it's now going to be in its 37th year, but I should also say that a few weeks later you all had a luncheon, a Halloween luncheon at Mandina's, and Bill and Maureen Detweiler and Errol and Beverly Gianna and some others, but you know, doing that, and as executive director at Le Petit, you said, you all can have this space, and that just meant so much. It really
was perfect.
did.
It was good timing.
Yeah, very, very good. Well, then you went to the North Shore for a few years.
Right.
And the St. Tammany Art Association, Southeastern. I mean, it was a pretty busy few years over there, too.
I enjoyed living over on the North Shore, great arts community, and running arts organizations over there. And then for some reason, I took a detour into being an educator and ran a cultural resource management program at Southeastern for many years. I was to become a tenured professor. I needed a graduate degree, so I started taking courses at UNO in the wonderful Arts Administration program, graduated, and they hired me to run the program. So then I returned to New Orleans and had a great time, fabulous students, and a really important program. And then all of a sudden, you know, there was a job opening at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage
Foundation.
This is
2004, right?
2004, right.
I mean, I was amazed, you know, to find out how long it had been. And of course, we should say that it's not just, as we know, a Jazz and Heritage Festival, because the proceeds go to fund many of the activities that you are in charge of, including a Heritage Festival School, the John Jameson School, all these, and you are always a festival kind of guy.
Right.
So you've got the Treme Festival and the Blues Festival, and I mean, the list goes on, and just those activities out there. But WWOZ is, of course, one of the most visible too, isn't it?
Right. I mean, it's amazing for an organization. First of all, just the fact that our major cultural activity, like, you know, a ballet company does a certain thing, an opera, symphony, the Jazz and Heritage Foundation does the world's greatest music and cultural heritage festival. And the revenues generated then go back into the community through numerous programs and assets. And as you mentioned, WWOZ is one of our assets. And WWOZ is phenomenal. I mean, it's worldwide promotion of New Orleans music and culture. And during the years we took off from Jazz Fest, they're festing in place, utilizing all of the archival material in our archives and their archives, broadcast internationally, and the listenership was phenomenal. We'd never seen the kind of growth in listenership. So OZ is a real cultural treasure for this city.
And we've also got to mention, though, that you all give out slices of the pie in terms of partnership grants,
right.
community grants, which are spread throughout for a lot of activities, not just music, but to really add to enhance the culture.
No, it's amazing. I mean, having run numerous nonprofit organizations and always being there, like, where's the money coming from?
Yeah.
To have an organization that has had community partnership grants for many, many years, and we're now at $1.5 million that we give out annually to all different types of arts organizations in Louisiana, into in-school music and arts programs, after-school programs, filmmakers, recording artists. I mean, the list is sort of like everybody who's in the creative arts can apply to us. And, you know, it's been fun and phenomenal to see that happen. And then during the pandemic, we started a music relief fund where we gave away, I think, $1.7 million to musicians, music workers, black masking Indians, culture bearers. And then we're just this week distributing a $1,000 check to, I think, 1.4 thousand people. Musicians and stuff. So it's phenomenal that we've been able to step up and really support the entire community across the state.
Mm-hmm. Well, Don, I just can't tell you. I've known you for a long time, and I've just been always in awe of your generosity of spirit, and as we said, the can-do attitude. That fact, we can do this. We may not have a lot of money, but let's get started. And you don't see as much of that these days, and so it's nice to see that you epitomize that. So congratulations on this award.
Thank you. Well, it's been wonderful to work with so many talented people, and just, you know, having an entire career involved with the creative class of the musicians and the performing artists and theater artists and dance artists and visual artists. I mean, that's a blessing to be able to work with all those creative people.
Well, you are our blessing. Thank you. And moving over to Alan.
And you know, the group I'm about to talk about, their Schoolgirls, or the African Mean Girls play, was actually a recipient, the NOLA project, of a grant from, you know, Don and the people of the Jazz Fest. So thank you very much for that. So let me tell you, there are 3 shows that are on the boards right now, all about to go off this weekend. The first of which, actually the first 2 of which involve black private schools. The first one we're going to mention is Schoolgirls, or the Mean African Girls play by Jocelyn Bayo. It's directed by Tanaj Jackson. The ensemble cast all have authentic dialects from Ghana. There are a lot of issues raised about traditional beauty and how color variations can create a sort of a pecking order in African society. The play is set back in 1986 and involves the Miss Global Universe competition. And the Mean Girls here are at the Aburi Girls School, a private institution, but they all have a lot to learn about life. I recommend this for all of its challenges to African society and the way that the students deal with prejudice from each other and their adults. Also, want to let everybody know that's going to be on for the final weekend at Marquette Theater, Choir Boy. I was able to interview this Monday the interim artistic director at Le Petit, Kenna Moore, and several cast members from Choir Boy last Monday on my NOLA Theater talk show. There's several key performances in the work, but the biggest role, the choir boy Ferris, was played with remarkable skill by Avarice Anderson. He's a closeted gay attending a private academy for blacks. Other noted actors are Roche Washington as Bobby and Nicholas Jovan as David. You'll see them in just a moment. There they are. Written by Terrell Alvin McRaney. This is a moving and tender work. Its 6-part harmony, by the way, is sensational, with fantastic vocal arrangements that are easy on the ears. Choir Boy, which was scheduled, as was Schoolgirls, due to COVID, had to be rescheduled for this final weekend. Don't miss it. And finally, Peggy, please let me take just a little bit of time to talk about a wonderful production over the World War II Museum at BB Stage Door Canteen, a perfectly charming show. We'll meet again. The Blonde Bombshells of World War II is at BB Stage Door Canteen, written by Sean Patterson, directed by Hannah Rochelle, who you see there. The show also stars Bryce Slocum. In just 75 minutes, they sing 22 songs in tribute to Helen Forrest, Alice Faye, Dinah Shore, and then classics by Margaret Whiting, Joe Stafford, and Frances Langford follow. And finally, selections by the famous Peggy Lee, Betty Hutton, and Vera Lynn of World War II fame. Hannah and Bryce are darling on stage, and their singing is absolutely superb. I strongly urge everybody to go see it. And there they are with a legitimate World War II veteran for that final weekend this week at BB's Stage Door Canteen.
Alan, I saw it, and I so recommend it. And it's the last weekend. And to hear her sing the White Cliffs of Dover, oh my gosh.
And we'll meet
boy,
again.
Does she have a range, too.
Yes,
She
yes.
can sing just about
Hannah,
anything.
you will remember Hannah was the star of Legally Blonde. She also, of course,
Wow.
years ago, she's been a Victory Belle for many years.
She's
and just
terrific.
a person on many, many stages.
And
It's really
kudos
wonderful.
to Harry Marone, too,
Yes.
who's, at the keyboard, too, and is fine band. Thank you. And now it's time for our picks of the week. Poppy.
Well, it is time for the annual Dining Out for Life. That's taking place next Thursday. This, of course, raises money for Food for Friends and Crescent Care. There's 16 participating restaurants donating 15 to 75% of sales. And I'd like to really send a shout out to Muriel's, who's donating 50% of their proceeds from that day, and Café des Gars, who's giving 75% of everything they take in. So thanks to them, and remember to dine out for life next Thursday.
Absolutely. Don.
Well, the Jazz and Heritage Foundation has an extensive concert series that we do throughout the year, but we have a summer series. And this Saturday, we have the wonderful, amazing Tuba Skinny. And it's phenomenal. I mean, they're so electric and dynamic and energetic, and they have an international audience. But they'll be at the George and Joyce Wein Jazz and Heritage Center, 8 o'clock on Saturday.
All right, thank you. Alan.
Peggy, we're starting to talk now about the next Shakespeare Festival play. Of course, right now, As You Like It is on the boards, but Henry IV Part 1 will be running July the 15th through the 30th. I wanted to mention it now because I'm going to be missing next week, but that's over at Tulane's Dixon Annex, and just like always, I'll see you at the theater.
All righty. And the annual Louis Armstrong Jazz Camp, which will be held in July at Loyola, will have its fundraiser, and that's on July the 6th, featuring the camp's new artistic director, Donald Harrison Jr. Also performing that night will be Jermaine Basil, Don Vappy, and other members of the camp's faculty. It will be held at the George and Joyce Wein Center on North Rampart Street. Go to eventbrite.com for ticket information. And Jason Berry's documentary on our city's second line traditions and jazz funerals continues through the end of June at the Broad Theater. Thank you all very much for watching. Once again, great to have you here, Don. Bye-bye.
Steppin Out is made possible in part by Susie and Pierre G. Villery.
With a lifetime of passion for public television, we're pleased to help underwrite Steppin Out.
Please join us in supporting WYES TV.
Rouse's is proud of the creativity and the unparalleled entertainment in New Orleans, and honored to highlight it with their sponsorship of Steppin Out on WYES.